Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Esposito with Guardian. I'm the CEO and co-founder, and I'm here to talk about how we're leveraging advances in nanomaterials to build the next generation of portable, sensitive, and scalable analytical tools that make our world possible. In particular, I'm going to be talking about an ion detection platform technology that's used for radiological, chemical sensing, and even industrial processing. Now, with the platform technology, we've actually gone out and explored all the different applications where it's used. Now, an ion is essentially just a charged atom or particle, but being charged allows it to be manipulated, to be filtered, and then to be detected. And that process is what powers things like mass spectrometers that we use for drug discovery, eye mobility spectrometers that we use for looking for opioids, explosives at airports, and even vacuum gauges, which is a tool we use to do process monitoring critical for building the devices we depend on. Now, we've done a significant amount of customer discovery, around 500 interviews in the space. And we've really identified deep areas of impact we can make, real pains that we could be addressed, whether it's around sensitivity, eliminating high voltage issues, a variety of different other areas. But today I'm going to focus in on one product area called vacuum gauges. I'll dive into its area and applications, but the reason we're focusing on this part is after we've done a pretty big market area. It's the one with the lowest technical barriers to entry, a strong commercial pull from the manufacturing side and the people who build devices right now. And it looks like a great way to start getting to revenue quickest while de-risking our core technology, our core platform that could easily spin out into all these adjacent markets down the line. So it's important for you to understand what a vacuum market is. But as you can see here, whether it's semiconductors, the cell phones in our pockets, the windows on this building, vacuum processing is a critical process to what makes our modern world possible. Now, depending on the different process or manufacturing step, it requires you to monitor vacuum or the absence of pressure over different orders of magnitude, right? And that's critical for you to be able to successfully deposit or etch away materials, and it's going to be growing in importance as we move to more complex manufacturing processes, such as around 3D memory and other applications. And altogether, this is about a $450 million market servicing all these different industries with gauges. Now, the problem here is we have this really critical component that powers our manufacturing processes for the modern world. Unfortunately, for each node, a node being a part in the manufacturing facility that requires vacuum, and there's quite a lot of nodes in a semi-fab lab as an example, you actually have to employ 2 to 3 different gauges to measure vacuum. Essentially, none of them are capable of measuring over that full range, right? And each gauge is going to cost you from a couple $100s to a couple $1,000 a piece. Now, some gauges can actually go way higher in expense, maybe up to $25,000 for specialty use cases as well. But in general, this is the price area we're talking about per component. Beyond the cost and having to rely on hiring 3 different people to do the same job, they also have high voltage requirements. They add temperature, chemical reactivity to the system. Some of them will burn out at higher pressures. Other ones just fail to work at lower pressures. And essentially, you're adding multiple failure points to a process control in a very expensive manufacturing process. Now, what Guardian is doing is actually developing the first full range from atmosphere to ultra-high vacuum gauge. It's a semiconductor processable nanomaterial-based detector that's ultra-low weight, very small, and has a lot of other additional advantages. But essentially, we're replacing the job of 3 different detectors with one device. It reduces complexity. We have the ability to produce multiple sensors on a single device, meaning we can look for consensus measurement for higher accuracy, which is a real problem in the vacuum space. Some have accuracy of plus or minus 50%. They save cost and space. There's less operator integration, and they're really easy to replace based on their size and easy form factor. You can also see up here one of our latest prototypes. It's got about 36 different sensing devices on here that only require about 100 millivolts to operate. And I give you a size of scale and what a sensing area might look like. Now, the core patent behind this ion detection actually comes out of Northeastern University. This is an awarded patent at the end of 2017. And as a Northeastern University spin-out, we're going through the process of licensing this technology from the university. But important as I talk about some funding we have down a little bit later in this conversation, we've also been developing different processes around this, which we're building a larger moat of IP and trade secrets for how these devices works, how to reset, recover them, and a few different other applications. Now, understanding what this market actually looks like, the Pfizers and Intels of the world, the manufacturing side of our companies you're probably familiar with, they tend to buy integrated systems or fab pieces from large integrated companies like Lam Research. Now, the Lams of the world are buying all their components, the vacuum component subsystems, from companies like Inficon, Edwards, which is a subsidiary of Atlas Copco, about a $9 billion company that services these markets, MKS Pfeiffer. They're either producing in-house some of these detectors or detector components. They're pulling in components that make these devices possible from companies like Hamamatsu, Photonis, DTEC. And what Guardian is poised to set is in the beginning is to work with some of these manufacturers and either go through a joint development partnership, developing a new technology that could really set one of these people apart, or we can do a direct sale to multiple people in this area, or go out with a more complicated product into the Lam Research directly. Now, there are a couple key things I want you to understand about this market. One thing that was really interesting as we dug in, there is a ton of market consolidation in both the component supplier level and the vacuum gauge manufacturer level. And there's a few reasons for this. One is they've really suffered from innovation in the space. Essentially, if you were to dive down into products provided by these companies, they're essentially different flavors of the same thing. And there are iterative changes or differences between them that differentiate, but there's nothing that really separates one company from the next in terms of product. They're marching towards commodity. And there's definitely a craving from these companies to be able to set themselves apart and deliver a single component vacuum gauge that can service their customers' needs from atmosphere all the way down to process conditions. Now, our team tackling this, we have deep expertise in nanomaterials, the physics that make this device possible, which has been critical for this R&D stage right now. We've built up a team of mentors, consultants, and advisors that have sold into the semiconductor industry before, have ramped up manufacturing facilities if that's the direction that we need to go, ramp up manufacturing facilities if that's a full-scale manufacturing facilities if that's the direction that we need to go, and serve as managing directors at one of the Techstars, as a managing director at Techstars. And as a company and as a group, we've been able to achieve some prize money, some grants to be able to de-risk this technology through a gold prize at Mass Challenge, being accepted into the Air Force-funded Techstars program, winning the Technology and Space Prize, and some SBR funding kind of all at the same time, has allowed us to do a deep dive into de-risking the big R of the product. And at this stage, we're looking to leverage one of our programs into a phase 2 with the National Science Foundation, which we're applying for at the end of this year. And our next steps, or what we're looking to do, is close out this year with the work that we're doing right now, raise around about $1.5 million, and go after that phase 2 from the NSF as well, with the potential of the $500K matching at the end of that. The goal of this round is to do two things. One is to handle some key hires, VP engineering, an expert in ion optics, and an expert in electronics packaging design, in-house, begin scaling up the development effort that we have. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but most of the big players in the manufacturing side of the space, we have letter support for people willing to test and integrate a device. We're looking to get this money to ramp up to engineering prototypes, to get out to these potential collaborators or customers, do some pilot studies, maybe get some white papers pushed out. From there, once that milestone was reached and we had successful pilot, the next stage would be ramping up manufacturing and sales into these spaces. At that point, as I mentioned at the top, there are a ton of different market opportunities for this platform technology. At that stage, as we begin to ramp up sales, I think there would be time for us to begin an R&D loop back into a product area like ion mobility spectrometry. So at Guardian, there's a lot of really interesting and compelling areas for us to go with a platform technology. We're focusing in on a low technical barrier to entry, large customer pull area, such as vacuum gauges. And we're looking to raise around and find investors who've worked in these different markets and who are interested in bringing the next wave of analytical tools to market. If you can't find myself tonight, please also look for Nick and Theron. He's shown up here with me. He's my go-to on biz development contacts, and we'd love to have a follow-up meeting, a pitch with you. Thank you for your time, and have a good night.